G'day Guardians, Roguey and Matt here bringing you another installment of our Year in Review series. Last week we had a look at Season of the Hunt and Beyond Light, and today we're bringing you our thoughts on Season of the Chosen. Now, Season of the Chosen, what many consider to be Bungie's return to form when it comes to their narrative episodic format. And I think it's safe to say we've stepped into an armistice with the Cabal. Matt, what are your thoughts on Season of the Chosen? The episodic format, return to form for Bungie, yes or no?
Yeah, man, absolutely. For me, that season was a huge win for Bungie. Because, like, personally, coming into the game, like, at the beginning of Season of the Hunt, this was, like, the first season that I could really engage with and, like, really sink my claws into in terms of, like, the story development, but also the content. It was just a fantastic season.
Yeah, I think after Aramis, Keitel was such an excellent bad guy to follow on. And that's the thing, right? She wasn't really a villain. She had her people's best interests at heart. She had a common enemy. And you know what they say, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. And I think that rings true on Season of the Chosen. But let's have a look at some of the things that came out in that season. I think we can all agree that the story knocked it out of the park. It was so much fun kind of waiting weekly. It felt like Netflix, right? Or any of your shows coming out. Each week we got a new taste of something cool. How's it going to end? Are we really going to join sides with the Cabal? Unthinkable, right?
Yeah, they built a really good narrative there. Like the suspense of logging on every single Wednesday for us in Australia and being able to play, and just finding out how the story would develop. It was so good. It was so good.
Yeah, for sure. And as far as content goes, this was a pretty robust season. We got an entirely new activity, which is the Battlegrounds. And in hindsight, probably one of the better of the seasonal activities that has ever been released, in my opinion. So there were 4 maps total that came through on Battlegrounds. We had 2 on Nessus, 1 on the Cosmodrome, and Europa. So jumping into a Battlegrounds for the first time, Matt, what were your thoughts?
Wow, there are ads everywhere. Yeah, I loved it because, like, you know, last season you had the lures, so that was like that season activity. But jumping into Season of the Chosen and like a battleground being like a full match made activity, like the sheer amount of ads, I couldn't believe it. And for me, like at that point in the time, in my like life in the game, I had quite a few things, that I could use, like exotic weapons, armor, and stuff. So being able to go into something that was super dense, full of ads, it was so much fun. So much fun.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think you touched on it just briefly. We had the lure was our kind of seasonal, I guess, quest item in Season of the Chosen, but now we had the hammer. And it was a little bit similar, right? We charge the lure and we socket the hammer, and that's kind of how we would get ourselves our loot from Battlegrounds. So before we get too deep into loot, I still want to cover some of the content that came out. So yeah, we had 4 Battlegrounds maps, while relatively the same purpose: kill a bunch of Cabal, get to the end, fight a dude, kill some more Cabal, get to the end, fight a boss, right? It was, but like you said, I think the ad density, and it was something I feel like I hadn't heard that term before in Destiny.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, obviously, because I hadn't played the game prior to Season of the Hunt, the amount of feedback about people, praising Bungie for the ad density made me realize that I guess there hadn't really been, many activities in the game up until this point that featured that many enemies. So it was very cool to share that with the, past and present Destiny community. Like, just absolutely smash my microphone there.
It definitely turned into a little bit of a buzzword. I feel like every single Reddit thread was praising Bungie for their ad density, and then we would see in future seasonal activities the opposite would come through, saying there isn't enough ads, the ad density is lacking. So it was a weird little buzzword.
Yeah, it kind of became like the benchmark for like what players expected from Bungie. So,
for sure.
And I guess the way that they created it, they did that to themselves. They made this really gold standard. So, and it's really hard to one up something that's almost perfect. So.
Yeah. Well, before we move on from Battlegrounds, do you find yourself still playing them today? Do they hold up in the current sandbox?
I think they do.
I would agree.
I would go back usually because if you still do 3 per week, you get a bit of loot. And the loot from the Battlegrounds is good. You have the initial chest, and then you can use your like socketed hammer to get the second chest. I actually find that almost every Battlegrounds gives you an Umbral engram too. So it's like you get your 2 bits of loot, you get an engram that you can focus, and then after you do 3, you get another piece of loot. So in just in terms of like the loot that you can get, it's really good. It's really generous. I think they hold up. They're great places to do catalysts for your weapons. And they're really good for me is like trying new builds out, because I feel like if I have a new build, the best way to test whether or not it holds up is in a place full of ads. And if I'm, if I need a place, it's load
if you're
straight
sick
into
of Altar of Sorrows, right?
Yeah, literally, just change the background.
Yeah, Altar of Sorrows, very, very familiar feeling there. But we also got 3 new strikes. Oops, sorry. 1 new strike and 2 refurbished strikes. Very interesting to see that much content. Again, it felt like Season of the Chosen was chock-a-block. So we had Proving Grounds, brand new strike, Devil's Lair, and Fallen Saber, 2 old strikes that have been, I guess, brought out of Destiny 1's content vault here into Destiny 2. Let's start with the brand new Proving Grounds. What are your thoughts on Proving Grounds as a strike and then as a Grandmaster strike?
As a regular strike, I remember loading into it. I think it was one of like the weekly quest steps to go do the new strike. I remember being taken away from it. I was like, this is sick. Like, we're in like this huge like tank thing. Like the dialogue in the background was like really progressing the story a lot. I think I could be wrong, but maybe it was at the conclusion of like the story arc at the end there.
It was, we were fighting the champion, and whoever won would concede their, I guess, terms of engagement.
Yeah. And I just remember like that feeling for the first time going up the elevator to the boss room, and it was just so sick. When you enter that room, you see all the old armor on the ground, and I don't know, they really set the scene for just like a really cinematic, I guess, boss fight. It was really, really cool.
A little bit of replayability as well. If you remember, there were the named enemies, and you had to kind of kill all 12 of the generals that you couldn't do in one single playthrough if you wanted the chosen seal. So that added like a little bit of RNG, a little bit of replayability to get you in. As a Grandmaster strike, though, Proving Grounds.
Yeah, I think that was the first one that kind of stumped us, right? That was
it'll kick you down, and then it will kick you down some more.
I remember we tried initially to cheese it at the end, and we were having no luck. And I think that was the first Grandmaster that we beat that I felt like that huge sigh of relief. I think at the time we were the first ones in the clan to do it, so it was kind of like we didn't have much advice, we didn't have any sort of like preparation. So being able to get that clear, I remember at that point meant a lot, because it was like the perseverance that we had, the determination, like the motivation as well. It was just so good, so good.
It felt like you were bashing our heads against a wall at one stage.
Oh man, and I remember afterwards it was like, we are never farming this Grandmaster.
Never doing this again until this season, and it was back. Devil's Lair.
Yes, that is Devil's Lair. Which one's that?
That's the one with Sepix Prime at the end.
Sepix Prime. Yeah, I always get them confused.
Big servitor boy.
Yeah, like
the walkers.
I played a bit of Destiny 1 on release. I can't really remember where I stopped playing Destiny 1. I don't have like.
It's the first strike at the game. It's the first strike you do in Destiny 1.
And when this came out, I remember like getting a massive hit of nostalgia. Like, it was just really cool to see, Bungie bring something from Destiny 1 into Destiny 2, and like pretty minuscule changes, right? Like they kept it pretty true to form.
Yep.
The music though, the music in the boss.
They turned it up a notch.
Oh my god, it's so good. But it was really good. It was good to have an old strike come into the playlist and kind of freshen things up. And it's still, even though it's like old, that strike would be considered almost like 8 years old now. It still felt fresh.
Wild, huh?
Yeah, in like today's sandbox, it was really cool.
Yeah, I think they did a great job of keeping it true to form, 100%, but also adding in some new challenges. We got the Fallen Walkers being added into that long-range tank room. The addition of champions, obviously, is a little bit tough. And overall, I thought it was a lot of fun. Actually, when I was getting some Galahorn footage on Destiny 1, I reran Devil's Lair, because I was like, I never remember where everything is, and it felt such a pushover in Destiny 1. The enemy density, and there we go again. Ad density just was not the same in that Defend the Ghost room. So all in all, a great strike, a great re-addition to the game, and I think one that will continue to surprise and delight a lot of Guardians jumping in there, whether they're returning from Destiny 1 or playing it for their first time in Destiny 2. Fallen Saber, I felt had lesser impact to me. Again, Devil's Lair, it's iconic. The music's iconic, the boss is iconic, the fights throughout are iconic. I don't get that with Fallen Saber. There's nothing in there that really stands out to me. Defend the Warsat at the start. It's a public event.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Rasputin's a cool character, but when it originally came out, wasn't very fleshed out or really thought what were we going to do with Rasputin yet. So I don't really enjoy it. I don't like the boss fight either. It's just kind of nothing.
Like for me, I couldn't really relate to the whole Rasputin thing because it was well before I started playing the game.
Yep.
So for me, it was just like, you're right. It was like a public event to kick things off, which is like boring. And then you jump down into like the bunker or whatever it is, and then you empty that room, and it's like, then you empty the next room, and then you empty the next room, and then it's boss room, right? And it's like, it's got its couple of damage gates, which are annoying, but it just feels like a pretty monotonous strike. It's usually one that I'll back out of. If I'm doing a strike playlist, I usually hold Y and get out of there.
Yeah, it doesn't really feel like it has any unique mechanic except for maybe the lightning part, the electrical currents. But even that, it's not like it's fun. It's just walk left and walk right.
Yeah, I think after the amount of team wipes we had in Grandmaster on that exact part, I don't want to play that again.
Yeah, so 3 strikes though, a pretty impressive addition for seasonal content. Even though 2 of them were returning, maybe they had an intent to release them at a different time, but 3 strikes in a season is quite monumental effort. Speaking of not just the strikes, we also had kind of our first taste of what Bungie would then go on to refer to things of this quality of a Presage quality mission, right? And that, of course, is Presage. I think the first time you play that level, it didn't feel like there was anything quite like it. Nah. Sure, you had kind of the Outbreak and the Whisper missions, and those were incredible, right? Yeah. And Harbinger as well, but there was just something about Presage, that eerie, deserted, desolate cruiser in the middle of the reef, just sitting there, and we have to board it. We don't really know what's going on. What's the warlock? Osiris is talking to us. Cadel in the background as well. They're just kind of having this conversation, and these 2 enemies talking it out in the back of our ear while we're on basically a ghost ship as we slowly move forward, trying to figure out these puzzles. It was. It just didn't feel like there was anything quite like it, especially in the game post-sunsetting.
I just feel like that mission really showed everybody like what Bungie is capable of in terms of just like a story-driven bit of content, right? Like, as weeks went on, like the replayability like wasn't quite there, but like you said, like that day one, like going into it day one, no guide, no idea where anything is, no idea where to go. Like those moments those moments are hard to get in any game. Like there's very few moments that I can think of where I'm like, that was great. Like that was a great bit of like just video gaming. Like I don't get that from many games, and like for Bungie to do that, and they've replicated it in some of the other seasons now, but that there, I remember you and I did it, and when we finished, like that was such an accomplishment. I felt like that was going in blind, like super hard to recreate, but for me, that was like, okay, Bungie knows what's up. Like if I can get this kind of quality, it doesn't need to be like every season, like maybe a couple of these every year or something like that. It was impressive. It was really impressive.
And I think that's the risk you run when you do missions of that quality, like Presage, like the recently released Grasp of Avarice, is you have that surprise factor, you have those puzzle factors that once you know how to do them, it loses its charm, but the memory lingers, right? Every time I jump back into Presage, seeing my ship just kind of floating still out in space is so cool. The jumping puzzle around the side to open things up, the little mechanic with the spores, all in all, it was a superb mission. The trash compactor scene from Star Wars, got to live that out in Destiny, right? It's just, I never thought I'd be able to do something like that. So that was awesome. I think I had a lot of fun in Presage. Got a great deal of what are they called? Dead Man's Tales. Yes. So got to farm that a few more times before it hits the content vault.
I think my fondest memory of Presage was, after the hype had sort of died around, it's like shortly after Clown Car became
Oh,
thing.
Clown
Yeah,
Car.
right. And so, after the kind of hype had, left, and I think everyone wanted to tackle the master difficulty or try and do it flawlessly, like squishing 12 Guardians into Presage, everyone like trying to bounce off each other in the hallways. Like, I think that mission just holds like pretty close to the heart, right?
Yeah.
Like the impressive atmosphere at the beginning, and then shortly after, it's like 12 Guardians just rushing through. Like, that was awesome.
Yeah. So Presage, I think it really, again, there's just so much on Season of the Chosen that
Yeah.
set a standard and really heralded the return to form for Bungie. I think after seeing an incredible weekly storyline be concluded in such an epic fashion, straight into Presage, a jump scare mission essentially with puzzles and haunted ships, it was incredible to play through. And then we had Guardian games come through. So that was kind of our, I guess, calendar event of the year. If you think about the Harrowing, you think about the Dawning, here we had Guardian games. This was your first Guardian games that you played in, I believe, and of course, Hunter Master Race. Take it. What were your thoughts on this time around?
So I had no idea what to expect. I saw a lot of Reddit threads leading up to it saying, Bungie, I hope it's not like this or that from previous years. I remember reading that Titans won the previous year, so I had a bit of hope there, being a Titan man. It didn't seem as eventful as I thought an event would be. I think I hold things like the Halloween event and the Christmas event pretty high. The activities are pretty fun, or like what you need to do is pretty fun. Guardian games just didn't really do that for me. I think it was the EAZ event. Was that the one where you had to like go through?
Yep.
Yeah, that kind of grew a bit old really quick for me because it was like
that was Solstice, wasn't it?
Oh, was that Solstice? What was
EAZ
Guardian
Solstice.
Games? What did you need to do for Guardian games?
It was the strike playlists where you would all join as the same class, remember? And you'd get points.
That's right. Yeah. It just really didn't do it for me. So for me, Guardian games was pretty doo-doo, and the fact that Titans didn't win sucked even more.
Well, this time around, Guardian games had, I think, popularity protection previous year, and that's why Titans were able to cheat out a win. But this time they removed the popularity protection, and so Hunters, rightfully so, got that golden trophy, top of the podium. But all in all, I agree. The ornaments, it was kind of fun. Mini Sparrows back out. The playlist, not so great. You just had to wear your cape and then do the Guardian Games playlists. And then we got the catalyst for Heir Apparent. Or was that?
Yeah.
That was Guardian Games, right?
I think that was Guardian Games. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got the color scheme on it. We got that impossible to kill Arc Shield and PvP.
Yes, thank you, Bungie.
Guardian Games.
My favorite Thingiverse. Yeah,
for sure.
For
sure.
Yeah, pretty forgettable.
So that's kind of all the content that we had, all the story content, calendar content. Let's have a look at some of the returning things. Return of the Umbral Decoder. This was something that was very, very popular in Season of Arrivals. We saw it disappear for Season of the Hunt. And there was, I would say, public outcry on Reddit. It felt like every single week I was seeing a thread begging for the return of the Umbral Decoder. And so that came back in the form of the Helm. And we had this great new space that we could go and start our quests at. We had this great new space where we could go and get our daily well mods, and we'll talk about elemental well mods soon. But the Umbral Decoder was there, allowing us to focus our engrams. So explain to us how, I guess, the Umbral Decoder was brought back in and what we could do with it.
Yeah, so I remember it vaguely in Season of Arrivals. When I started, I remember you referring it to as the oven.
Yeah, the oven.
So it was good to see the oven come back. For me, though, like if you remember when because you would get the hammer charges from playing Battlegrounds, and then you could focus your engrams at the Umbral Decoder. Those tier 3 ones where you could focus your armor and your weapons, being able to see your gun get like 2 perks in the final column, that just like blew my mind. Like I didn't want any regular copy of a gun. I wanted like the one that had 2 really good perks. So I feel like that sort of introduction into like weapon, like focusing and tying it in with the season activity. I think that's like the perfect reason to bring that Decoder back. And like you said, I saw the outcry everywhere. Everyone missed the Decoder, and it, 1 year on, it's been like a fantastic piece of content. So yeah, really, really happy that's back.
Yep, so that was stationed in the Helm, but not only was the Umbral Decoder in the Helm, we also had the War Table. This is where we would go ahead and do our weekly missions, and as we progressed our rank and our level in Season of the Chosen, we got access to the Elemental Well mods, and this was kind of Bungie's answer to what's next for combat mods. This was before the Warmind Cell nerf had come in Season of the Lost. So here we are running around with super powerful Warmind cells still, and then 6 Elemental Well mods. They definitely left quite a lot to be desired. When you even think about what we had, I think it was Font of Might and Font of Intellect were the only 2 that actually did anything.
Yeah, and what was it, like a melee or melee?
No, I don't think there was melee Wellmaker. I think there was Ordnance, Elemental Ordnance. That would make grenades, wells on grenades. There was the shield break one. There was getting a kill in your super. Maybe there was melee. I don't think so. I think melee came in the next batch. Could be wrong there.
Yeah, like, because at that point in the game, I had missed all of the Warmind Cell mods. So, everyone using Warmind Cells, I definitely felt like I was missing out. So I do remember trying the Elemental Well mods at that time. Trying to make something happen, and like you said, there was so much to be desired that it wasn't fun. It didn't have any utility. It didn't have a place in like low end content or high end content. They barely even synergized with like fire team members. Like you would being a detriment by running them. So literally, it was cool to bring them out, but I really had to think, like, what was Bungie thinking? Like, you're dropping those ones with nothing else, and no real context for like what's to come either. So it was really hard to get behind it, because for me, I was definitely like hoping for something more, and I was hoping to like have something in my hands because I didn't have Warmind Cell mods. But I was definitely disappointed in that regard.
Yeah, they did not come in with quite a splash. So that was the Helm, Umbral Decoder, and Elemental Wells. Now let's talk guns. Some of the best things in Destiny, of course, are the weapon varieties. And this season, we got, what was that? 6 new weapons coming out?
Yeah, 6 of like the themed seasonal weapons. Yeah.
So if we that's how we're going to... Quite a lot of weapons come out, some reissued, some playlist specific. We will just be covering, I guess, the seasonal weapons. So in this case, it's Extraordinary Rendition, Brass Attacks, Far Future, Imperial Needle, Threaded Needle, and Code Duello. So give us a little bit more insight into how what made these guns stand out, besides the fact they look like some screwdrivers just glued together.
Yeah, I imagine them as like a pipe with like some swirls around a pipe. I don't know, like the aesthetic on these weapons is pretty funky. In terms of like how they stand out, I think some do, and I think some do not. Extraordinary Rendition, that gun, fantastic. And I feel like the reason this weapon did stand out is because in this season they introduced the new perk Frenzy, and Frenzy on that SMG, especially with something like Overflow or like Subsistence or Outlaw or whatever, like it just felt so good to use. Like you could feel the full effects of Frenzy. So I feel like Extraordinary Rendition was like a time and place weapon for the new perk. But I still think it holds up. I still use my Extraordinary Rendition all the time. Like it's a really, really good weapon. I think Imperial Needle, I felt like kind of they were bringing in like a bit of a gap filler. I don't think there was any legendary void bows. So
no, there's not.
And like in this season, Bungie was really like focusing on like the gilding seals and stuff like that. So I feel like they really needed to sort of hone in on like those gaps there. But the bow itself hasn't really stood out for me. It's a bit more of a forgettable weapon.
It did have Impulse Amplifier was another new perk.
Yeah,
and other than the rocket launchers, it could roll with Impulse Amplifier. I don't think I ever got one.
Yeah,
with that.
I really wanted it with Frenzy because that would have just made it shoot really quick. But I never got one, and maybe that's why I think it's a little bit more forgettable, because all the rolls I got were sharded immediately. Brass Attacks. I honestly feel like the consensus for this weapon is like 50-50. Some people love it, some people don't. I am on the side that don't. I love it. Literally. So like, I just didn't like the feel of it, but at that time as well, it was the only farmable and I guess target farmable void sidearm. You could get the sidearm, the 7 Seraph sidearm, at which time was just a wall drop. So being able to get that is completely RNG, but being able to focus a brass attacks was good. I that was my opinion of it. It was just a bit of a filler. Bungie ticking the box saying, "Yep, everyone can get this." So, in that same breath, though, Far Future, being a solar sniper, it just didn't do anything different from the current solar snipers. I think you had like Widow's Bite, which you could have got from like the Prophecy Dungeon at the time. You had like the Ikelos sniper rifle, which I think is also an adaptive frame, and like none of the perks on it really stood out. So
even Omniscient Eye is solar as well, right? And same frame.
Yeah, I think so. So it was just like, for me, just another sniper that just did the same thing that was already out there. Threaded Needle, though. I guess at the time, Season of the Chosen, we had no idea that this was going to be the hot flavor for Season of the Lost, right? Like, it's funny, I kept a bunch of rolls of Threaded Needle, and I was like, these all look great on paper, and I sharded them all, and I think a few
I can just imagine you now looking at that rapid hit Vorpal and being like, I'm never going to need that. Press X.
I literally had that too, and I'm just, when I'm looking at how people burn the corrupted boss, whatever her name is, and, using their rapid hit Vorpal, I'm just like, man, I messed up.
Yeah, Google Stadia. That's her name.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, like that was so forgettable at the time. Like linear fusion rifles in Season of the Chosen, like who was ever doing that? Who was ever using them? But
statists, masochists, people that don't enjoy fun.
Literally. And Code Duello being the last one, which I use my Code Duello still today. I managed to get a nice roll with Impulse and Cluster. Just feels good. And like with the right casing and stuff, it reloads really quickly. I think it has a really quick base reload. Just a really great feeling weapon. Doesn't look that great. It looks like the massive pipe with the swirls, but
I was thinking the same thing. It's just a big extraordinary rendition.
Yeah, literally. But it's good. It's good.
Yeah, and I think this was when the rocket buffs had just came in as well, right? So we had just seen, I think it was 15%, maybe 10%. I'll have to double check my numbers there. But rockets had just received a buff after being not really in too much contention for that heavy weapon slot. All of a sudden, everyone was running Code Duello. So unlike Imperial Needle, that was lying in wait for the right moment to strike its time in the spotlight, Code Duello came onto the scene with explosive power. And I think having, Impulse Amplifier, Cluster Bomb, such an amazing combo. And you got to remember, what are we all running? We're running Battlegrounds. There's a lot of ads. We want a rocket, right? We don't want to take out one cabal with a single linear fusion rifle shot. We want to take out 13 of them with a well-placed rocket. We also, I believe in this, maybe mistaken, we did have Argent Ordnance was one cost in the artifact as well, or that was Splicer.
It could have been Splicer. I only say that because I remember you testing damage on the Templar, and that only came out last season. So
correct, it was.
Would have been great to have it in Season of the Chosen though. But you're right, that rocket buff was really welcomed in Battlegrounds, because if you because, and I'm sure we'll lead into it soon, but the Salvagers Salvo, the grenade launcher, being chain reaction, if you had a chain reaction Code Duello, you were just coming with firepower. It was like shoot your Salvagers Salvo, switch to the rocket, shoot that one non-stop.
Yeah, I think Salvage Salvo, I want to hear your thoughts, because this was a gun that... how many kills do you have on it? Do you able to pull that up for me? While we're looking at this was a gun that you just held close to your heart. It was, what are you running today? Hey, Salvage Salvo. Okay, great. Anything else? Nah. It's just that. And I think it's got versatility, it being a seasonal weapon. What do we call? What are they called?
They have a name, like a pinnacle weapon, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I have to remember.
Yeah, I can't really remember. I have I think 11,000 kills on it at the moment. And I haven't really used it in a season. The meta changes from, time to time, but that gun just felt so good. like from using it initially with like Ambitious Assassin and Chain Reaction, like it was made for Battlegrounds. That thing just chews through ads, and I for me that grenade launcher, first time really using a breach loader as well. I just felt like I could feel the effect of it. I could feel how powerful it was, and it was so little. You bring it out, it's like a special weapon. Don't really think much of. It's like this thing is like clearing waves and waves, and it switch to Vorpal weapon. It does some pretty good damage in that regard. Switch to Demolitionist. You can start doing some insane damage with like the right exotic armor on. So what a gun! What a great gun!
Yeah, while I doubt we will ever see something quite like the return of Mountaintop's micro missile, I think this was a great successor, a great way to bring breach loader grenades launchers back into the meta. So Salvo gets a big old tick of approval in your book. We had the introduction of Adept Weapons coming into this season, both from getting completions from Grandmaster or getting completions of the Lighthouse. So the Adept Weapons for the Grandmasters, I believe it was...
I think it was Palindrome, Swarm, and the Assault
Shadow
Rifle.
Price.
Yes. And I think Trials was Messenger.
And Shayura's?
No, I think Shayura's was last season. I think it might have been Igneous Hammer. Or Solar Scar. I think it might have been the sword. Yes, definitely Solar Scar.
Definitely Igneous Hammer.
Yes.
I remember that was the first one I got.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so I think it was those three on each. Really cool to see a clear difference in the same weapon. There's one thing farming for your weapon, but then being able to get a better version of it. And that's one thing it's a bit of a theme, I guess, in 2021 with Bungie is like, They start off with, just weapons, and then, you could start rolling multiple perks in the weapons, and then now it's like, now you can start rolling a better version of the weapon that can, that can just have better mods.
You're getting me excited for weapon crafting, just like the thought of like that. Like we have such a limited way of doing it now. What are they leading us up to?
Who knows? Who knows? But like being able to bring in adept mods and just completely like change, just having a better version, like being able to like look at another Guardian and be like, my adept one, it can do more than your one. And it's like, and I got this from doing, I guess, the hardest content in the game at the moment. Like I had to do a Grandmaster to get this, and you see people grind it to try and get the perfect roll. Like that's a lot of time.
Yeah, there's some really cool potential, and I think people have had a lot of fun getting adept weapons, showing them off. Kind of, as much as people say in Destiny it's not about bragging rights, it's 100% about bragging rights. If you're equipping an adept weapon, you don't care about that adept big ones, man. You just want to show off that you've got it. So that was a lot of fun. It gave the real endgame players something to grind for. It gave people who don't want to do endgame something to complain about. Everyone was occupied, right? Everyone was occupied with things to do. Exotics, though. So we talked about our legendary weapons. But I want to go ahead and touch on the exotic weapons that we had in Season of the Chosen. Just two of them. Considering the raw and sheer amount of content that we got, to only see two exotic weapons come through, normally I might be a little bit disappointed, but when you look at these weapons, Tiku's Divination and Dead Man's Tale. Now, Tiku's, I'm not too big a fan of it. I can see why people like it. I can appreciate its place in the meta. It just doesn't. I just don't like bows. I think that's what it's come down to. I just do not like combat bows. Sorry, DJ.
I am the president of the TQ's fan club. I love it. And like when Overload Bow is the champion mod, it just absolutely shreds Overloads, because I think the like explosion of like the arrows and stuff like that just creates more of that overload. So that's usually my go-to. But it doesn't quite have like the ad clearing potential that you'll see in like Trinity Ghoul, but I guess, the reason I like Deadman's and Tiku's is they both still hold up, like, 9 months later. So I just feel like Bungie did such a great job on those two exotics.
Fair enough. And Deadman's Tale, it was our second iteration of random rolls on exotic weapons. We saw the ability to get things like Outlaw, Vorpal Weapon, fourth time's the charm. I can't remember what the other perks were because they probably weren't very good. But those three were the ones that people would farm for. And of course, you were able to get things like accurized rounds, short stock to increase your range, and really turn that scout rifle into something quite incredible. Not too sure. Again, people thought this may have been the dark future where even exotics we're going to have to start farming for them to get the perfect ones. We spoke a little bit about this last week when we were talking about Hawkmoon. It's the same thing, right? When you think about what does Dead Man's Tale do, it's a scout rifle. It's not like Symmetry where you fire out giant homing bolts of arc energy. It just shoots bullets. It shoots them accurately. It shoots them fast. While you do get a little bit of a damage perk when you get some headshots in a row, and when you get the catalyst, you can blind fire or you fire from the hip with increased accuracy and increased range.
Yep.
It's not doing anything crazy. I feel like those random rolls at least allow you to make it kind of your weapon. If you want to take it in to some base level content and just take out a bunch of dregs or thralls, having outlaw allowing you to get back to a full clip instantaneously, because remember, you're reloading 2 shots at a time. It's so much fun to have. When scout rifles are going to be an anti-champion weapon, having that Vorpal weapon for increased damage, and typically it's against anti-barriers, right? Barrier champions, so being able to pop that barrier even more quickly, and then if you want to do some sustained damage, you've got 4th time's a charm to constantly refund bullets to your magazine. So those rolls, I think, give Dead Man's Tale a bit of flexibility.
Yeah.
Rather than just pigeonholing it into one specific role.
Yeah, well, I feel like that's how I view exotics is, sometimes I'm using a different one and I think, if I could modify it in just a little way, it would make it feel so much better. You can't attach mods with an exotic, you can't change anything about it, but being able to have a role of your choice, I love that. And with something like a scout rifle like Dead Man's Tale, it's pretty diverse, right? Like, it could be a good invading weapon, it could be good in Crucible, it could be good in PvE. Being able to farm a role for essentially every occasion is great. And yeah, I mean, there are some pretty forgettable perks, but the ones that you mentioned, like, they hold up even in today's meta.
And I think I see, because my next question was going to be, if you could give one exotic random rolls, which one would it be? And I see Reddit threads all the time asking, why does Bad Juju have hipfire grip? Can we please get rapid hit on Outbreak perfected? Yeah. So maybe there is a market for random rolls on exotics. Not to say that they should go back and fix that, but imagine if, instead of just always getting hipfire grip on your Bad Juju, would you rather being able to get some of those other perks while also still maybe getting unlucky and getting hipfire grip, right? So I don't know. It's the devil you know versus devil you don't, right? Could it be more interesting with random rolls, or are we just forever conceding that our Bad Jujus don't have a great perk?
Do you have one? Do you have an exotic in mind that you would, if you could give any sort of perk to? Can you think of one?
Yeah, give me what is it? Trinity Ghoul with chain reaction. Can you imagine?
You mean Risk Runner with subsistence?
That's filthy. But yeah, like, so many cool things. And I think we saw Traveler's Chosen when it got a catalyst recently. It actually got 2 perks. It got full auto and osmosis. So who knows? Maybe we'll see some things like that in the future. But we're getting sidetracked. We're not looking that far in the future. But yeah, subsistence on Risk Runner would be a lot of fun. Chain reaction on Trinity Ghoul. I like that we both went for the ad clearing arc weapons that kind of do the same thing. That's really, really awesome. But the last thing I wanted to talk about, we had a look at exotic weapons, exotic armor. Now, these 3 are all very big players in the meta. Yeah. We had Mantle of Battle Harmony for Warlock, Omnioculus for Hunter, and without a doubt, probably the best exotic Titans have had ever, Curious of the Falling Star.
Yeah, well, like I said with the weapons, that Bungie making 2 weapons that hold up, honestly, like, all 5 exotics that ship with the season, including the 3 armor pieces, do today. Like, not only do they hold up, but like, they are very much the meta. Like Falling Star is like your damage one. Omnioculus is the staple for like Grandmasters, and Mantle of Battle Harmony is like fantastic for like Elemental Well mod builds today, or even just like easy damage buff today. So like in casual content. So they did a fantastic job on all 3 of these.
Yeah, no doubt. I think these exotics are some of the best that both Hunters and Titans have in their arsenal. You could argue that Mental Battle Harmony, Warlock supers are just so impactful. Getting them early, like that's the thing with mental battle harmony, right? You can either sacrifice not using your super for damage buff, or sacrifice not getting a damage buff for quicker charging super. So it's like no matter which way you spin it, it's a great exotic to have. So seeing that coming through, these 3 exotics, pieces of armor, the 2 exotic weapons, Season of Chosen, it delivered. But is it safe to say Season of the Chosen, is it the best season that Destiny 2 has ever had?
Ever. Whew. I mean, at that point, that was my second season.
Yeah, I mean, knowing what you know now as well, like even including Lost and Splicer.
I would rank it above Season of the Hunt, and I would rank it above Season of the Splicer. Season of the Lost has been great, but I would actually rank Season of the Chosen as my favorite, and I would, in my opinion, make it the best.
Yep.
Purely because I have had trouble following the story and caring about the story in Season of the Lost. And like, I know that might sound crazy because we're like leading up to Witch Queen and it's all about Savathûn, but the delivery of content and the delivery of the story in Season of the Chosen just felt so clean. I cared about logging on every Wednesday to find out what happens next. In Season of the Lost or any other season, I really didn't care as much. I just either that sideline of story I didn't care so much for, but Season of the Chosen was the reason that I sat through My Name is Bive's 4-hour lore video. I wanted to know about everything that had happened so that I could appreciate how good it like actually was. Yeah. So I agree. I think that Bungie's delivery of the content in Season of the Chosen was just really like articulated well. Like every week it was like, man, this is great. Next week, this is great as well. Like it just felt like they really nailed what came out and when it came out with the strikes, the different battlegrounds, the exotics and stuff. Yeah, it was really good. So yeah, Season of the Chosen, it takes the cake for me in 2021.
The cutscene where Keitel and Zavala are having the armistice, and they're going to be basically doing a ceasefire and teaming up against the Hive, and some of the Cabal don't agree and they try to assassinate Zavala by shutting down his ghost, and Keitel just picks up the Scion and just slams him on the ground. It was just so cool to see this huge, intimidating character actually do something, because it's great to see these characters standing there in all their glory, being intimidating or whatnot, but to actually pick up the Scion and just break him was really showcased the power of this and this NPC.
What a great character though. What a great character. Like honestly, Keitel just delivered on all fronts. Like,
because you're not evil, right? Like it's not like just your classic, I'm a bad guy and I'm gonna kill you, and my motivation is I'm evil. Rawr.
Yeah, and that's like from my understanding at that point, it's like what Destiny was, right? It's like this, this faction or like this species against this one is always like against each other and stuff. Whereas like Keitel comes through, and it's like, hey, I know like we've been fighting, but like let's join up, and it's like, damn, like that's kind of cool. So yeah, wow. Great season. Yeah,
I think so far Season of the Chosen does take the cake as the best season that Destiny 2 has given us. If you disagree, would love to hear your reasoning, would love to hear why a different one comes out on top for you, but from my experience, this one is going to be ranked as my number one for now. That's going to do it for us. We hope you enjoyed this review of Season of the Chosen. It was a blast to go down memory lane. We only have a few more weeks until Witch Queen comes out, so get your hands on a good roll of Dead Man's Tale. Get your hands on an extraordinary rendition, and maybe even that kind of fabled Imperial needle with Impulse Amplifier and Frenzy. Who knows, maybe you can get one too. That's going to do it for us for now. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you next time.